all of you. I am Gursimran Singh and I'll be your host for today's event. Today is the 19th of October and it is the day for the fourth seminar of the first illegal festival edition organized by the student organization Democrats under the aegis of Lovely Professional University Division of Students of Welfare. Our topic for today's discussion will be international trade law and World Trade Organization and the role it plays to facilitate international trade. Our guest for today is Mr. Gurpreet Singh Randhawa, who is Professor, Faculty of Law at Delhi University. He is LLM and PhD from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and his area of expert is international law and trade law. Sir, we welcome you.
So, Gurpreet sir, on behalf of LPU, we welcome you to this platform to deliver a guest lecture. Am I audible to you, sir? Sir,
Sir,
actually,
please unmute.
yeah, your mic is off.
Okay, my sound is coming now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute. Let me start my PPT.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is it visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. Fine. Thank you very much, Dr. Azamid. Give me an opportunity to speak. I think the first time in the lovely professional university. And I'm also thankful to Gursimran to introduce me. And without wasting your time, let me go directly to the topic of today. I hope that all the students, so dear students, that what we are going to discuss in today's lecture is the three things. What is the international trade law? Then what is the globalizations and World Trade Organizations? You must remember one thing, that international trade law has played a tremendous role in development of international law, which we are studying in these days. Because trade was the first and the foremost factor in developing of international law. Why I am saying so, that if you remember the history of the colonializations, which occurred from the 15th century or 16th century onward, after the Industrial Revolutions, particularly when all the European countries who wanted to find out the new colonies for their trade, because of raw material, because of they wanted to capture the resources of those colonies, exploit the resources of those colonies. Therefore, the search for the colonies where they can do the trade, in fact, result into some kind of development of international law. So what I mean to say is that the international trade law has played a tremendous role in development of the modern international law. Because even if you will go to the history, ancient history or medieval history, you would talk about the Silk Route, you would talk about the trade between India and Iran and Middle East countries via Afghanistan. So trade has remained a major factor in development of the international law, as well as development of the globalizations. The modern globalizations is on account of the international trade between these states. With these preliminary remarks, what we discuss in the international trade law, naturally, when you talk about the international trade law, you are going to discuss all the laws which are available there in form of conventions, legislation, bilateral and multilateral treaties, like multilateral treaties of the GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, General Agreement on Trade and Service, the Agreement on Agriculture, and there are many other multilateral agreements and international Incoterms, international organizations, particularly those organizations which are dealing with the trade, and among them the most important organizations are WTO, World Bank, and IMF. So international trade law is concerned with all those areas. And you must remember that economic relations, the economic capacity of the state has a tremendous say in the international law. Why the United States has playing a predominant role in the international law? That is because of the economic strength, because of their trade and their economic might to dominate all over the world. And why the China is becoming one of the most important country in the world, because of they have also did a lot of work in international trade. Now they have the dominance. So international trade has an important role to play in development of international law. If you will go to the 15th and 16th century, the law of merchants were particularly developed among the European traders because they have to trade among themselves, and then while doing this kind of trade, the international contract, the partnerships and trademarks, and these kind of other law, the legal domains were developed in the Europe, and they have the subtly influence on the modern international trade law as well. From this perspective, let's go to the another area, economic globalizations. What does it mean by economic globalizations and how it affects the ordinary persons? Today we are living in the globalized world. And what do you mean by globalizations? You could see that Joseph Stiglitz, who is the former economist of the World Bank, and he was the winner of the Nobel Prize of Economics in 2001, he said in his famous book in 2002 that globalization is descent. He said, the closer integration of the countries and the peoples of the world, which have been brought about by the enormous reduction of the cost of transportations and communications, and the breaking down of artificial barriers to flow of goods, services, capital, knowledge, and to lesser extent people across borders. So what is the globalization? Globalization is basically the more integration of the world. The world make a small village where you have the access of everything while sitting in your room. So globalization is a phenomenon. Of course, it started with the colonializations. The colonialization was the first step towards the globalizations. But what is the difference between that globalization and the modern globalization is that the earlier globalization, the pace of the globalization was very much slow because of you didn't have the fast means of transportations, you did not have the fast means of communications. Therefore, the pace of globalization with the beginning of colonialization of the European, of Asian country or Latin American countries or African countries, it was a slow kind of globalizations. But in reality, it was the beginning of the globalizations. But the pace of the globalization has become very fast in 19th century and 20th century when we have done lot of work on means of transportation and the communications. Again, if you will see this definition, what he is saying about the economic globalizations. Economic globalization has brought the enormous reduction in the cost of transportations and communications and breaking down of artificial barriers to flow of goods. If you go to the 19th century or before 19th century, there was a lot of barriers, economic barriers to the international trade. Many countries have adopted the policy of protectionism. Protectionism means simply to protect its own trade over the foreign trade. But when the globalization in modern times started in a very intensive form, it reduced the all artificial barriers. Now, when we will look at the WTO, you would find that WTO, the basis of WTO is the free market economy without any restrictions, without any barriers. So this globalization has brought the fastest means of the communications, fastest means of the transportations, and while sitting in your home, how it is a revolution in the communications. The revolution in the communication in the sense that when you are sitting at your home, you have the information of the entire world. You just switch over to your TV, you will get the international channels like BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and all those channels which are showing the news of entire world. You can go to the internet where you can has the access the information of the any part of the world or anything regarding anything. In the same way, the transportations earlier when you have to go to the Europe, say in 18th century or very beginning of the 19th century before the invent of aeroplanes, more than 30 days or 60 days they take from India to the England or to the America through the seaways. That was the normal course. But with the advent of the aeroplanes, that this transportation has become very fast. Now you can go to the United States within 24 hours or to the England in 12 hours. So this two revolution in these two technologies brought the world together. Therefore, we talk about the concept of the global village in these days. And who played a tremendous role in so it is the economic development of the countries with the innovative technologies. It was all those things were made possible. Again, there is another important kind of uh, important kind of quotation from the Thomas Friedman is his book, The Globalization, how he defines in his book. He says it is inexorable integration of markets. So globalization is integration of market. Simply why it is integration of the market? Because when you are sitting in your home now in these days, if you remember, if I don't know your generation know this or not, but our generation, when we are the young or we are just growing in 8 or 9 years children, we know that this VCR stuff is very important things for the villagers. When the VCR used to be brought in a village, the entire people in the village, they try to go to that home where the VCR has been installed for the entire night. And people have so much curiosity to see the movies of the VCR. But what is the relevance of that VCR in modern day? No, because everything is available to you at your own mobile now. Now, these things have totally changed, and that is because of the globalizations. And now, then earlier used to talk, okay, that person had bought a VCR which is made from the Japan, and that person has a Japanese tape. But now nobody talks about the Japanese tape or a VCR and all those. Why you don't speak now? Because now everything is available with you at your own country. Just go to the mall. You can choose any brand of the cloth, any brand of the any electronic goods. You can order from the Amazon. You can order from the Flipkart. Now, what does it mean by that? It means the international integration of the world market. Now, everything which is made in America, which is made in England, which is made in Japan or China, all are available in your domestic market. And what is the reasons? Because of elimination of the trade barriers. Now the state are compelled to liberalize their economy to eliminate all kind of trade barriers. What do you mean by trade barrier? Trade barriers are simply means the high tariff rate. Yeah, you can say in simple word, high tax rate. Now you are not supposed to impose the high tax on the foreign goods than the tax which you are imposing on your own domestic goods. It is the day of the free market economy, the free competitions between the foreign goods and your domestic goods. State can't put any kind of restrictions now. Resultantly, what happened? Integration of the world market economy, where the availability of each and every product, wherever it is made, is available in your domestic market as well. You need not to look to the other countries or need not to go to the other countries to buy the Apple mobile now in these days. That is available in your country as well. So the aim of the globalization is to make the integration of the world market, to spread the technologies, and because of the help of these technologies, this has been made possible. So it enables the individuals and the corporation, the nation state to reach around the world more farther, more faster, more deeper, and more cheaper. Why more cheaper? Because if you have a free competitions, you can go to the market, you can buy a mobile cheaper, cheap mobile as well as very expensive mobile. And this corporation's world has become more deeper, more faster now. And in this way, enabling the world to reach into individuals, corporations, nation state, farther, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before. Why individuals? Why individuals are affected by the international globalizations? Because of now the international law is not only applicable upon the state, it is not the subject matter of the state, but it has become the subject matter of the individuals as well. For example, if you have to travel from India to England, you are governed by the international law. So whatever the product you are buying at home, like say Apple mobile phone, ultimately that mobile phone is manufactured in the China, but it is not a Chinese company, it's American company. Meaning thereby there is a lot of negotiation that took place between the American company and Chinese company where the Apple is produced, and then India and China where that product is sold. And that is possible through the trade negotiations. So individual is also concerned of the international law because individual is ultimately consumer of all product and services which the globalization has brought together. Of course, corporations, the corporation is not limited to one country. It has become some multi-corporation has the reach over the vast number of the countries. You can take that example of the Amazon. Amazon is not only confined to India. It's you can get the product from the Amazon in Pakistan. Amazon has also reached in England, in India, although it is an American company. So globalization has been playing a very, very important role in development of the international law as well as international trade law. Remember, international law is also the trade law as a part of the international law has a more important role to play because international trade law plays a very significant role in shaping the other laws of the international law as well as of the state. So gradual integration of the national economy into the borderless global economy. That is the purpose of globalizations. Borderless global economy. That is again important kind of term you must remember. Why borderless global economy? As I have already said, trade is not only confined to the goods. It is not only confined to the productions, because some material. No, trade is also concerned with the services sector. Then I can make a deal with that person that, okay, we can do I can give my services to you, but you have to pay this enough dollars. Meaning thereby, under my able guidance, an operation can be carried out in another country, and this happened actually. When the doctors from the foreign countries are being engaged and they are just sitting on the computer and the robot machines, and they are instructing to the another doctor sitting in the another country how to operate the operations. So global trade is not only confined with the goods, it's also concerned with the services. That like Amazon company, that's American company is rendering its services here in India through the e-marketing. So modern trend is the integration of the world market into one borderless global economy where the goods or the services pass from one country to another country without any barriers, without any hindrance, without any discriminations. So effect of the globalization kya hai? What is the effects of the globalization? If you compare your own people, we are living in this age, you could find the effects of the globalizations. This effect you can find in the jobs. This effect you can find in the food habits. Now, if you go to the restaurant, you would find the Chinese food, you would find the continental food, you would find the Italian food. From how come these things come into an India? Because of this globalizations. You have a KFC, American brand here in your country. You have McDonald's, and there are so many multi-brand. So food taste has also changed with the globalizations. Your health, many equipments are being brought from the foreign country. Educations. Recently, your central government has allowed to the foreign university to come here in India to set up their campus in India. Naturally, they are going to have the impact on your educations, your leisure time, even how you're spending your time. The globalization has impact on you. Whether you will play the cricket or all the time in the village, the people used to play that kiddo and kanche ja goliyan, what we call that, brande, somebody, but nobody plays now. Everybody is playing cricket, football. So leisure time or PUBG on the mobile. So globalization has affect the jobs, affect the food habits, affect the health, affect the education sector, even the leisure times. So even the price of the gasoline. Gasoline means the price in the oil. It also affects the common person, particularly those countries which are heavily dependent in the import of the oils. So globalizations has impact almost all spheres of the human life. Now, what are the reasons behind the globalizations? So three reasons are there, which you can see on the screen. I'm not going in detail because most of the things I have already spoken. One is democratization of the technology. Democratization of technology means Earlier, the technologies were only concerned with the developed countries, the first world country. The first world countries are those countries which are developed countries. Because of now, the developed countries, in order to have cheap labor or less taxes, they went to other countries to install their plants, a manufacturing unit. For example, the China. Now, and today, the China has the most China is the mostly industrialized kind of country because of all the multinational corporations. They have their plants, they have their companies, they have their manufacturing units installed in the China because of the cheap labor and the less tax or simple legal procedures. Resultantly, it helped in the growth of the China, as well as the China got the technologies now. So this technology for the now has become a more available kind of tool to the entire world as it used to be. Democratization of the finance. Democratization of finance means FDR. Earlier, this capital was strictly controlled by the developed countries. But later on, under the liberalizations wave, they opened up their market and they said, okay, anybody can come here and invest here. Keeping the same kind of precedent in mind, the developing countries also open their market. FDR, foreign direct investment, which we know, and which we have also allowed in India. Sometimes the 50% FDR allowed, sometimes the 60% FDR allowed, keeping in mind the sector in which we are allowing. So the flow of capital and democratization of the finance has also helped in the development of the globalizations, economic globalization particularly. And the third factor, which is the most important factor as well, is democratization of the informations. Now, every kind of information is available on you, with you. Whether you are living in a village, whether you are living in any city, you have every kind of informations, provided that the technology has a reach to you. Therefore, now you can find out that there is no limit. That is thanks to satellite dishes, cable television, above all the internet, which make all those things possible. So Friedman, again, he notes in this concern is that days when the government could isolate their people from understanding what the life was like beyond their borders or even beyond their village are over. Now, no state can put the people in the cage and deprive the informations of the entire world. That is not possible because democratization of informations has made it impossible. Somehow the information would leak and it will spread out. Any kind of informations which you want to spread out on the social media, it cannot be checked because of the revolution in the technology. Internet may be dangerous to spread the misinformations, but in spite of that, it is very difficult to check on the internet. Reason there being that internet is also required by the government agencies as well. They can't dispense with. If you stop the entire system, the internet, today the banking sectors are hugely dependent upon the internet. They have their own integrated kind of internet systems. If you keep all those factors in mind, you must remember one thing, that all those factors coupled with some other factors had made the process of the globalization irreversible. It's irreversible process. If any state says that I don't want to be part of the globalized world, That is not the possible. It's not the possible. But after showing this shining picture of the globalization, particular economic globalizations, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some kind of ills. It has many ills, it has many problems. There were the voices against the globalizations, not particularly from the third world countries, but also from the first world countries. Before going to that, let me talk about one more data, which is also very important to understand. In 1948, the exports of the goods was $58 billion per year, $58 billion in 1948. In 2003, this world exports in goods went to the 294 billion and 7,294 US dollars. 7,294
Uh, I think Sir got disconnected. Let's wait for him for a minute. And I'll request Sanjay to reach out to Sir to see if there is issue with his network. Just give us a minute. Sir will be joining us soon. Ajamit Sir, if you can.
Yes,
Gurpreet Sir got disconnected. If you can message him.
yeah, just a minute.
All right, sir. Gurpreet sir very well explained the role of globalization and how it plays a very important role for conversing with other people, for sending them goods, for trading in goods, and for doing everything we are able to do today. The internet is a product of globalization. It is a product of technological advancement because of globalization, which happened, and there are many other things which play here. At the level of international trade, that how WTO, World Trade Organization, plays a very important role to facilitate global trade and to ensure that and to ensure free trade between nations and to ensure that there is no barrier in the free trade. So this ensures that services from all the countries reach all other countries. However, there is a downside to this too, that it predominantly it helps those countries who are technologically extremely advanced, like USA, China, and so these countries, in the lieu of trade, in the lieu of free trade, what they start doing is they start to dominate other countries, and this is in another sense not less than colonialism, or the way Britishers dominated our country. They do not exactly dominate our country through through direct political intervention, although in some cases they do also directly interfere with the politics of the nation too. But in most of the cases, they indirectly influence the political culture of a particular nation. For example, we all know that USA has played a very important role in democratizing many of the nations, to ensure free trade, to ensure that their goods reach particular markets. So, in the name of giving democracy to the nations, what they do is they try to bring their own people. They try to bring those individuals in power who will ensure that USA is not prohibited from giving from exporting goods to those particular nations. So it's a very interesting interplay of international forces through international trade, because we all know at the end it is all about making more money and getting more power. And now this trend of USA is now getting shifted towards China. And China, because of its highly dominant position, because the government is very powerful in China, and because everything is centralized and the planning is done by Communist Party of China at the central level. So what happens is it plays a very dominant role in the trade of the nation, and it plays a very dominant role as to how the market functions in China. And since China is has a big share in the international market, and because of that, it plays a direct role on the international levels as well. So now China is also in many ways colonializing Africa, many of the nations of Africa, and how it's dominating their resources, and how it's trying to extracting the resources like USA did a few years back. However, because of the recent political change 4 years back in United States, when Donald Trump came to power, he directly challenged the Chinese hegemony, and he said that he proposed that there might be some changes in the national trade which will be brought to curb China and to curb its dominance. And although this is something Sir can shed more light on, I hope he joins soon.
Yes, good Simran. I've just had a word with him, so he's trying to reconnect. Just
All
he
right,
has
sir.
just told us to wait for a few minutes. He's trying to reconnect.
All right, sir. Ajamit sir, can we discuss about this? All right, sir. Gurpreet sir has joined us. Sir, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, sorry, I have got a problem with the internet connections, and let me start within 2 minutes.
Yes. So meanwhile, we were discussing the role countries like USA and China plays in the international trade, and how
Good.
to enter the markets is an essential component of international trade, and how it affects those nations, and how
Okay,
it's a
we
form
will
of
come.
colonialism.
Oh, okay, this is visible now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will. I think we have discussed this slide already.
Yes, sir.
We were on that. What were the problem with the globalizations? In fact, and I said that the problem with the globalization is not only felt by the third world countries. Uh, you, let me tell you one thing more before going to that. In fact, the world has been divided into two category. One is the first world, and another is the third world. When we talk about the first world, it simply means that developed country like European and America, Canada, these are the part of the first world country, which are developed country in fact. When I use the term third world countries are those countries which are developing countries. And also the least developed country also become the part of the third world countries. So majority of the countries in Latin American countries, African countries, and Asian countries. And another remarkable feature about these countries were that they were the part of the colonializations. They were the colonies of the West at some particular point of time. Therefore, they are developing countries. So developed country, they are put in the first world country. Developing countries are put in the third world countries. Of course, third world is a bit problematic kind of term because it contemplates that it must be some kind of second world country as well. So Russia used to be, when it was the USSR, it used to be a second world. But now it is no more. So this third word seems to be some kind of irrelevant nomenclature. Whenever I use this term third world, it simply means the developing country like India, Pakistan, some Asian countries, and African countries and Latin American countries. Or whenever I use the first word, it simply means developed country, European and American, Canada, and all those developed countries. So there is resistance in the first world countries as well as in third world countries. They feel dissatisfied with the globalizations. Because of both countries were alleging that there is a lot of emphasis on the international trade. When you're giving them a lot of emphasis on the international trade, it simply means international corporations, trans-border corporations, which have the reach to the entire market of the world, like Amazon, like Giant, like you have a Ford. Ford is a car manufacturing companies, American companies. So there are so many giant which have the reach to the world market now. So they got the more benefit from the globalizations than anything else. Another important with the globalization is that it invaded the culture, language, their habits, as well as their some social ethos of the people of the different countries. For example, if some teacher come to your class by putting the kurta and chadra, or if some person comes to your class having the dhoti and put the tilak on the head, how you will look at? And how your opinion has been changed. Although that is the attire of India, that is a part of the culture of India, but now it looks odd. The reason they are being is that globalization has invaded the taste of the people, their habit of wearing the cloth. So all are westernized now. Their culture, it has a very bad impact on the international environment, because international environment has been ignored under the globalization process. That's why you have more problem in this area. In environment, as you know, that the United States backtracking from the Paris Agreement. So if you don't have a healthy environment, then it is going to run the havoc with the people wherever you are living. Again, Americans oppose the liberalization of trade. Some Americans, immigrations, foreign direct investment, because absolute majority of Americans want a liberalization to go more slowly. According to the survey, most Americans know the advantage of open market but tend to weigh the cost, especially suppose the negative impact of the American jobs and wages as more important. Why the Trump has been saying, and why the Trump has been emphasizing that all the corporates, all the companies of America should come back to the America, because it has been alleging right from the beginning that the American jobs has been hijacked by the other countries, particularly the third world countries. If any company, American company, if it go from United States to the China, naturally it will generate the jobs for the Chinese, not for the Americans. Therefore, he has some kind of hinge regarding the companies being installing their manufacturing unit in some other foreign country instead of America. Because of in another country, they will get the tax havens, cheap labors, less restrictions, or less legal uh, uh, procedures, which is not so complicated instead of the United States, where they have to keep in mind the labor standards. Europeans have also some kind of grudge with the globalizations. They also perceive that globalization is a consequence of ruthless Anglo-Saxons. Interestingly, if you will see these quotations in Financial Times written by the Philip Stevens, that column like anti-globalist, he says, the anarchists have no need of consistency, but the broader coalition of anti-globalization offers seems just an inchoate. Non-governmental agencies were the multinational tamed, because now this is the age of the multinational corporations. And they are influencing the government's policies, and they are also influencing the international organizations now in these days. Therefore, many NGOs, they want that these multinational corporations must be tamed. Government must reclaim the sovereignty lost to unaccountable and unscrupulous business executives. Why the governments are under the pressures? And one of the pressures you could find out on Indian government when they brought these farming bills. Why they have brought the farming bills? And the politics behind is that these multinational corporates, they have been emphasizing to deregulate the farming sector. They wanted the government should withdraw from this sector, and instead of the government, they should come and have the monopoly in the farming sector too, where they will get the produce of the farmers at the cheap labor, and they will sell that farming produce to the world market. And you can find out if you will go to the mall, you will find the California almonds, you will find the California nuts and California this and that. Why? Because of this free market economy. And another important factor about that agriculture bills or Agriculture Act is that we must also remember that when we will discuss about the WTO, there is one multilateral treaty, and that multilateral treaty is known that multilateral treaty on the agriculture. And that multilateral treaty says you have to open up your market to the world, where you can't put the hindrance, where you can't put the restrictions. That multilateral agreement on agriculture is compelling to the third world countries to open up their market to them, to the developed countries. Resultantly, there is pressure on the government to bring those kind of acts. And you can see the protest in your own country, that how it is being protested by the farmers of the Punjab and Haryana and Western UPs, because the rest of the India, they have already eliminated a mandi system and a minimum support system. That's why the farmers are not protesting in such a way. Or whether another thing is that the media is not showing their protest. Of course, there are protests, but media is not showing, national media particularly. That's why we don't know much about. But there is a resentment among the farmers there too, If you will see the maximum suicides in India, that is, maximum suicide is done in the Maharashtra, which promotes that kind of open market, contractual farming. If it brings so happiness and prosperity, then why they are committing the suicide? That is the questions. So globalization has some kind of problem aspect too. But the other is IMF and the World Organization and the rest are agents of the new imperialism. If you want to have a domain in the world, that how you can do so? It is the international organization which help these powerful countries to have their domain. If you will see IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, WTO, World Bank, you would find one thing very much clearly, that all the institutions are dominated by the West. And they are making the policies of these institutions. Resultantly, all third world countries, they have to comply by. They can't dispense with. If the IMF say you need to amend your structural change in your country in order to have the funding from the IMF, you have to do so because you can't refuse. Only a country can refuse if that country has economic strength to do so. If the country is economically weak, developing country particularly or least developed country, they have nothing to say in these institutions. They have to comply by the term and conditions of these institutions because they are dominated by the powerful countries or developed countries. So, and yet then we hear the protesters call for a new global rules to protect the environment and prevent exploitation of labor. Self-interested trade unions stand with self-proclaimed idealists in demanding that rich nations protect jobs by imposing their own labor standards on the poor ones. Somewhere in all, there is a cry for a different set of values. It is hard to find, but is it there? And it explains why the protesters are winning. Another important problem in the globalization is because of you recently, if you might have seen, labor code has been amended that if the company wanted to expel the laborers up to 300, they can do so. They need not to have the government permissions. What does it mean by that? Why these amendments are there? All that under the pressure of the international laws, all that under the pressure of international trade or multinational companies, we say that these conditions must be there so that we can come and invest in your countries. And we are thinking by doing so, many companies will come to India if we have a cheap labor standards. I think that is not going to be possible because of it is not only the cheap labor standard or less rigorous labor law you have, but if you don't have a good system, your system is marked with the corruptions, with lot of bureaucratisms. In that scenario, no company is going to come. So after discussing these globalizations, let me go to little bit on the GATT and then WTO. I think only few minutes are left. Let me sum up in very simple way. GATT, it simply means General Agreement, Tariff and Trade. This is an agreement which was concluded in 1947 and it remained in force from 1948 to 1994 till the existence of the World Trade Organizations, meaning thereby the entire trade of the world has been controlled by one agreement that is known as a GATT agreement. GATT was a multilateral treaty, and if you want to know that GATT was nothing but it was a provisional kind of treaty, a provisional agreement. Provisional agreement in the sense that it was made just a stopgap arrangement, because what was being contemplated, the contemplated was making of International Trade Organization, ITO, International Trade Organizations. Since the ITO was not materialized, now why it was not materialized? Because of when the resolution regarding ITO was brought before the United States Congress, the Congress refused to give the assent. And without the United States, the ITO, International Trade Organization, was not possible. Therefore, ITO did not get the birth. And what happened that GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, which was a temporary arrangement, it became some kind of permanent kind of a, arrangement from 1948 to 1994 till it is replaced by the World Trade Organizations. From 1994, it is World Trade Organizations. That is again multilateral international organizations where 164 countries are the member of the WTO, World Trade Organizations. Another important thing about GATT you must remember is that GATT was only concerned with the trade till 1994. 1994 तक जो GATT था वो सिर्फ ट्रेड इन गुड्स, जो गुड्स है उससे ही डील करता था. It doesn't deal with the services. But since the developed country has been pressurizing to the developing country to include the services, therefore the new GATT, which was negotiated in 1994, it also includes the services now. So now the GATT in the present time, you also must remember that GATT was never replaced. GATT is still very much is there along with the WTO. But now this GATT has become more dynamic. It includes the services along with the goods. The services has also become the part of the general agreement on trade and tariffs. It known as a GATT and that known as a GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. Now, what are the basic principles of WTO? WTO came into existence under Uruguay round, which took place in 1986 to 1994. Under this, the WTO came into existence because of this long negotiations, and right from the 1995 onward, when this WTO was it became operational, it has been playing a very important role in international trade. Now, what are the major principles of WTO? Major principle of WTO is that it is based on the free trade. Free trade is the benchmark of the WTO. It wanted to liberalize the trade in the entire world without any restrictions, without any economic barriers, without any legal barriers, like custom barriers, tariff barriers. So it propagates the free trade. It sees the entire world as an integrated market where country A can sell its product in country B without any restrictions, without any barriers. Now, how this has been made possible? It has been made possible through certain principles of the WTO. The first principle of WTO is principle of non-discriminations. Non-discrimination simply means that you would not discriminate between the product, between the goods, between the services of your country and the foreign countries. You have to see both things as the same. In order to strengthen this principle of non-discrimination, it is based on the principle of national treatment, Article 1 of the GATT. It says the principle of national treatment. Article 3 national treatment का principle, Article 3 of the CAT, which says whatever the goods you are producing in your own country will be treated alike with the foreign goods which has been imported from the foreign country. For example, if you are manufacturing a mobile in your own country and you are importing a mobile from the China, then both mobile would be treated alike. Both mobile would be treated alike. There would be no discriminations while imposing the tax. If you are imposing the tax 10 rupees on Indian mobile, which is being manufactured in India, the same tax you will impose on the mobile which has been imported from the China or Japan or any other country of the world. It means you can impose only 10 rupees tax. If you are not doing so, then it would be violation of the principle of national treatment. So national treatment simply means that you have to treat the foreign goods like as they have been produced within your own country, as if they have been manufactured in your own country without any discriminations. Then the second principle of WTO says, principle of most favored nations. Very important principle which you might have heard, that after Pulwama attack in India, India withdrew this status of Pakistan, which we have conferred this status to the Pakistan. Most favored nation principle. Again, this is the principle of non-discrimination. Why this principle of non-discrimination is because, remember, if we are conferring this status to one country, for example, we confer the status to the Pakistan by saying that, okay, if you will send a cement to in India, we will impose very less tax, like 5 rupees on your one bori. But on the same hand, the cement which is being imported from the China or Bangladesh or any other countries, we are saying, okay, we are going to impose a 10 rupees tax on those cement. Can we do so? Of course not. Because principle of most favored nation simply says, if you are showing some kind of favor to one country, you have to show the same favor to the all. अगर आपने एक कंट्री के फेवर कर दिया तो वो फेवर आपको दूसरे कंट्री को भी करना पड़ेगा. Who are the members of the WTO? Otherwise, it is amount to discriminations. If you are saying that we are going to impose the tax of the 5 rupees on the Pakistani cement, the same 5 rupees tax has to be imposed on the cement which has been imported from the China, England, any country like Nepal, Bangladesh, or any other countries. You won't make the discrimination. In fact, the principle of most favored nation is the principle of non-discrimination, not to favor any country. You have to treat all the countries like goods are to be treated like goods. Like goods means एक जैसी चीजें. If like mobiles manufactured locally and mobile which has been imported from the foreign countries, like goods has to be treated like. Then there is also provisions for the subsidies and countervailing measures. Subsidies is a very, very controversial area of the WTO. What are the subsidies? Subsidies are generally when the country or any state gives some kind of help to their traders or help to their companies or farming sector in order to make that companies rise, or in order to help them to establish some kind of factories, or in order to compete with other. So subsidies are generally given by the state. And farming subsidies is one of the most controversial kind of subsidies in the WTO. Because if you see the WTO, under WTO, there is three kind of subsidies. One is green box subsidy, which is absolutely permissible. Absolutely permissible is only that subsidy which doesn't have impact on the international trade. If by giving the subsidies, it doesn't have impact on the international trade, that subsidy is allowed under the WTO, and that is put under the green box. Then amber box and yellow box subsidies, that subsidy which is permissible under some limitations, under some conditions, then that subsidies can be given. But if those conditions are violated, then that subsidies can be prohibited. And then in red box subsidies. Red box subsidies simply means that subsidies which cannot be given at any cost. किसी भी cost पे आप वो subsidy नहीं दे सकते. That is put in the red box subsidies. And another is countervailing measures. Countervailing is simply means if a country is giving a subsidies, then in order to counter that countries, another country has right to adopt the countervailing measures. Like if I am saying that, okay, we are going to sell the wheat below the minimum price in the international market, and rest of the loss the state will incur. The state will reimburse to their farmers. So we are giving the support subsidies. And consequently, the purpose is to capture the market of other countries. So resultantly, what would be there? It would be adverse effect on the market of that country, particularly their own domestic product. For example, if something is available to your market, the same thing, which you can buy for rupees 10, or same thing you can buy for rupees 20, to what you will choose. Naturally, you are going to choose which is the cheaper, that is prudent kind of buying. In the same way, if some country is dumping and anti-dumping, dumping their product in the market of any other country in order to capture that market, and purpose behind dumping that goods or product is to capture the market below the market price so that their domestic market would be destroyed. Its result would be that the economy of their state is going to be imbalanced with a serious, effect. So in that regard, WTO gives some kind of right that the state can adopt the anti-dumping measures. But remember that while adopting the countervailing measure or anti-dumping measures, you have to show that all the conditions which are necessary to adopt those measures. So these are the basic principles of the WTO. In very short, let me tell you the structure of the WTO. Structure क्या है WTO का? Structure में सबसे ऊपर, if you will go, then see that ministerial conference is at the top most body. Ministerial conference, and it simply means that it is the conference of all the ministers concerned of the state. All the concerned ministers are the part of the ministerial conference, particularly the Minister of Commerce, Finance Minister somewhere, depending upon the structure of the state, what kind of government system they have. So ministerial conference, it means 164 countries are the member of the WTO. 164 ministers of these countries are the part of the ministerial conference. The purpose of ministerial conference is to negotiate the new trade deals. Then general conferences. Since the ministerial conference cannot remain inactive for entire years, so what they have done, that they have a general conference. Ministerial conference meet once in 2 years. Therefore, in absence of ministerial conference, the general conference is there, which is a permanent kind of body. These general conferences are represented by the representative of these countries who sit together and they make the policies, world trade policies. Then under the general councils, there are other councils. These are the council for the trade related aspects of the intellectual property rights. Then council for trade in services, council for trade in goods. So जनरल काउंसिल के अंदर आगे 3 काउंसिल्स आ जाती है, काउंसिल्स फॉर trade related aspects of the intellectual property rights. Now intellectual property right is also part of the international trade, and there is multilateral treaty regarding the intellectual property rights under the WTO. Then council for trade in goods. Goods, as you know, that right from the GATT from 1947 till now, the good has remained a major part of the international trade. But with the passage of time, the services has also become a very important sector of the international trade. Therefore, you have the Council for Trade and Services too. 3 major councils, particular council dealing with a particular area, that is intellectual property rights, services, and goods. And to assist these councils in WTO, there are committees, there are many committees. We are assisting these 3 councils to make the policies, to make the rule regarding the international trade. Beside that, one of the most important body of the WTO is dispute settlement body. Dispute settlement body in the case if the dispute arises between the member of the WTOs regarding the interpretation of any treaty, regarding the any measures which have been adopted by a state which is in conflict with the rules of the WTO or treaties. In that sense, dispute settlement body is there to solve that dispute. Under this, there is full-fledged mechanism has been given therein. For example, earlier, the mechanism is that the countries were set together and they were trying to resolve their dispute. That is you can say consultations. The step in the consultation between the parties who have disputes. That is mandatory kind of mechanism. If the dispute can be solved through the consultation, then well and good. But if the country or states are not willing to solve the dispute, then they will go to the another mechanism that is known the panel. The panel would be constituted by the dispute settlement body. Dispute settlement bodies nothing but the general conferences. Then the general conference sets as a dispute settlement body. Then it can constitute the panel. Generally, the 3 members are in the panels, and that panels, after listening to both parties, give the report. And if the party is not satisfied with the report of the panel, then that report can be challenged. So it means that now the WTO has an appellate body too. So appeal can be filed before the appellate body under the WTO. Appellate body has 7 permanent members, and their decisions is final. Decision means their report is final. There is no use of word decision or judgment or reward or something like that. So their decision is final, and that decision is generally adopted by the general conferences. Once that decision is adopted, then that decision becomes applicable on the member states. So that is the structure of the WTO. Of course, in the last one line about appellate body of the WTO has become defunct because of a non-appointment of the members in the appellate body. And it is the United States which is putting the resistance in the appointment of the members in the appellate body because it has certain grievances regarding the appellate body of the WTO. So fate of the appellate body is hanging now. And nobody knows what will happen because only one member is left in the appellate body. Resultantly, the appellate body has become defunct kind of body of the WTO, no more operational. So that is the structure of the WTO. Thank you very much for your patience listening. and given me an opportunity to speak on these topics. I hope I I have done my job.
Indeed, sir, it was a very informative session by you on World Trade Organization, and we have learned how World Trade Organization is getting weak now, and how slowly and steadily things are changing in the global world because of the rise of several new leaders internationally, because of their decreasing belief in these institutions. Like Donald Trump was challenging free trade to China, and there are other nations also, like even India, who in India, the Indian government is generating an anti-Chinese product phenomena, but not doing anything officially. But this is a mood of the nation, that they are kind of doing this anti-free trade promotion in the nation, not directly but indirectly through people. So it's a challenge to the global trade. Let's see where we are heading. And thank you so much, sir, for giving us this lecture and giving us your time. And a very, very thank you, sir. Ajimit, sir, if you would
Thank
like to.
you.
Now I request the audience to ask some questions. In case anybody is having any question, you can ask. Okay, so we have a question by Sanjay that just a minute, Gurpreet sir, I'll read it out for you. So Sanjay has a
Okay.
question. That's what will be the impact of avoiding Chinese goods movement on the world trade? What will be the impact of avoid China goods movement on world trade? So Sanjay, can
Okay.
you please? Uh, okay, sir, you can answer this question.
No, I heard his questions, and answer is very simple. It entirely depends upon that how much you trade with the China, how much you are getting from the China. And in fact, you must remember one thing. Due to the all major companies of the world, they are manufacturing their goods in the China. Say your Apple mobile, after all, where it is being manufactured. If if you don't want to buy that Apple mobile, then think is there. But when you have majority of things being, manufactured in China, then it becomes a problem that what you can do. Second thing is that China has become so predominant in international market. To dispense with the China is very, very difficult kind of task. Remember that when this COVID kind of crisis, when it is going on, and United States demanded some medicine from India. What was that medicine? And you remember that for that raw material, we have to depend on the China. We are getting that raw material from China to manufacture that medicine. If you won't buy that things from the China, then how you can manufacture in your own country? That is the biggest problem. The biggest problem is WTO. Because you are the member of WTO, China is the member of the WTO. Under the WTO, you have to open up your market. You can pursue the people, but ultimately you have to get the alternative, viable alternative, good alternative. If you are not able to do so, for example, this my Dell computer, which I have been using, recently its motherboard was blown. And I said to the Dell company that I need the motherboard to be replaced because still it is in warranty. If you say that, okay, we are not getting the product from the China, then this Dell is not going to alive again. That motherboard was brought from the China. When I saw that motherboard, it was written made in China. Then it was installed in the laptop and now it became operational. So becoming heavily dependent. And that is one of the lessons which the world has learned now. Becoming too much dependent on one country may be a risky factor in the world. So you need to be self-sufficient, but avoiding China is a bit difficult because of the majority of things has become the part and parcel of our habit too, and these habits die very hard. Anji.
Yes, sir. So,
So very rightly said, Gurpreet sir. In fact, now the festival season is approaching, and most of the decorated
Yeah.
lights which are available in the market, they are also made in China.
Rather they are cheaper. So that is that how we can pursue to the people to use the diva and all those which are domestically made back to light.
Yes, sir.
That may be done.
Correct, sir. And moreover, sir, Indian people have a problem that they always prefer cheaper goods. They won't look for
Uh,
quality. Maybe the expensive goods they might be of a better quality, but still we prefer cheaper goods which are made in China. So
yeah,
it's very
that is
difficult
the trouble.
for
Hmm.
it's very difficult for Indians to totally avoid China, to like basically snap all the trading ties with China.
Hmm.
It's very very difficult.
Yeah, that's what I said. Hmm. Any other questions, please?
So we do not have any question in the chat box. So
So
I think
I
Okay.
have a question. Sir,
Okay.
excuse me, sir.
yes, ma'am, you can.
So
Sure,
this is
sure.
this is Dr. Varinder Kaur. So I have a question that will the Apple, that new Apple iPhone is going to
Manufactured
launch,
in
so that
India.
will be available in Indian market or not?
These are the policies of the companies. I don't know. वैसे Apple 12, I think that is being launched, है ना? I think
Yes, 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 sir. So there are so many customers
that
who are
is not a question.
waiting for the this phone. So will that phone be available in the Indian market?
See, this is not a question of the international trade. In fact, these are the matter and policy of the companies that whether they wanted to sell that product here in India or not.
No, but
The,
in India,
but the
the India will
question
allow
is,
them because it is
uh,
also assembled in China. So will India allow this product in the market of India?
uh, let me tell you one thing. Under the WTO,
Yes.
it doesn't mean that there are no exceptions. Exceptions are there under the WTO.
Yes,
What are the
sir.
principles we have gone through? Because of paucity of the time, I haven't gone in detail. Exceptions are that in order to have the uh, balance of payment, you can put the restrictions. You can uh, put the restriction in order to maintain the security of the state. If you remember right now, because this struggle between India and China is going on, we have banned many apps of the China, including the PUBG.
Yes, sir.
And the reason they are being that how we banned those app of the China by saying that it is threat to Indian security. And where
Yes.
from that argument came? Those arguments came from the WTO agreements that says that you can put the restrictions of the foreign goods in order to protect your national security, like national security, moral, hygiene. These are the grounds where the restriction can be put, otherwise not. You can't put the restriction on the Chinese. So if Apple want to sell that, they can sell. There is no any restrictions in that. Anji.
So thank you so much. It was a very, very knowledgeable lecture. So I enjoyed a lot this because this is not my forte, and I know little about this WTO and these all stuff. And you have given us a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Anji.
So there, we do not have any questions, sir, in the chat box, and I have checked the YouTube feed also. Sir has
Okay.
answered most of those
Too much
perspectives.
time, rather. Uh,
And sir, I think that is how much time we will take of yours, and I we will be relieving you. And thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions. Thank you so much
I'm
for
saying I am free to give the answer, but I
all.
have taken your too much time because of technological trouble which incurred in our lecture. You are free,
All right, sir.
but it depends entirely upon you. I'm free to give your all answers. No problem.
And
Thank you
sir,
so much, sir. Thank
if
you
I
so much.
may add something to the answer which you gave to Varinder ma'am. So,
Uh-huh.
although India has imposed a ban on some Chinese products, but what the Chinese manufacturers are doing, they are sending those products to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, and from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they are routed to India. तो वो चाइना वालों ने उसका भी तरीका ढूंढ लिया कि इंडिया वालों ने अगर बैन कर दिया, डायरेक्टली इंडिया मत भेजो, पहले बांग्लादेश भेज दो या श्रीलंका भेज दो, वहां से फिर इंडिया भेज देंगे. So this is how this
So
is the policy.
this is what the China is. सर ऐसे थोड़ी वो रूल कर रहा है वर्ल्ड पे.
Yes, exactly, ma'am. Because I am also teaching this particular subject to LLM, globalization. तो उसमें एक WTO वाला यूनिट भी है. So that's why उसका थोड़ा बहुत मैंने बताया था स्टूडेंट्स को.
ठीक है. Thank you so much sir. सर आईफोन आएगा क्योंकि वी आर वेटिंग eagerly for iPhone. iPhone आएगा इंडियन मार्केट में कि नहीं आएगा?
Ma'am, actually, one of my LLM students told me that now Apple has started manufacturing iPhones in India as well.
In
Like, this is
India,
a new
yes,
thing for
in
us.
India. Made in India company.
So sir, because we are making arrangements for to buy this phone from any other country. So my query was, is that available in the Indian market or not? So anyway, sir, thank you so much.
Yes, don't worry, ma'am, it will be available.
See, everything is available in India, particularly in Punjab, when you have NRIs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From the foreign country to India.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sure.
So,
thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for asking the question. And thank you so much, sir. We'll be ending this meeting now. We have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
So thank you so much, Gurpreet sir. It was a pleasure to host you on this platform, and we look forward to host you again some other time as well on a bigger platform.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You are
sir.
most welcome. Okay. Ji.
We'll be ending this live session now. Thank you so much, all of you, for attending this session. Thank you so much.
Himanshu sir. Himanshu sir, we can stop live.